If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and that you have the power to revoke at every moment. Those are the words of one of the greatest Roman emperors and philosophers of all time, Marcus Aurelius. He was a prominent member of the ancient school of Stoicism, founded in the early 3rd century by Zeno of Citium. Stoics, at the core of their doctrine, believed in the pursuit of true, natural virtue. Many of them had different views on what that virtue was, but there was this recurring theme of something called the stoic calmness, an attitude of rationality, reducing the influence of subjective judgment and emotional detachment. In order to be able to achieve this state of mind, it is said that it's necessary to strive for ataraxia, which surprisingly is an object of modern-day criticism. Well, now many of you might think, I've never ever heard of ataraxia, what is it, or any opinions on it. It would probably be a fair guess that nearly all of you can relate to this thought. So, let me quickly explain it for you. Explained by many as spiritual indifference, ataraxia can be described as a freedom from disturbance. Accompanied by the avoidance of pain, the pursuit of it usually means emotionally separating yourself from the disturbances and suffering happening outside of your personal zone. It's equivalent to not putting yourself in the other's shoes, or simply not feeling some of the emotions others might feel. It's something now we would call a lack of empathy. However, these days, especially on social media, we hear the notion that lacking empathy is in some way morally problematic, or that it makes us, let's put it simply, bad people. This belief surfaced countless times on platforms like Twitter or TikTok. For example, when the 2022 Netflix series about Jeffrey Dahmer was first released. As a series full of graphic material, it focused on showcasing the story of this infamous serial killer in a commercially acceptable form. Whenever a rather disturbing piece of media hits the public eye, a wave of aggressive criticism falls not only upon the thing itself, but also onto anyone who dares to publicly state that they were not affected by it mentally. With the now common mindset of wokeness, more and more people tend to associate the lack of empathy with lack of care and compassion, as if empathy was a golden virtue of the human race. But is empathy really a good thing? Sure, we can say it's completely bad, but we can't deny that it isn't perfect. According to an article by BBC Future, empathy has a few unexpected downsides that are usually forgotten. Those downsides could be the ones determining ours and others' mental and physical health. Empathy can be understood as sharing the mental state of someone who's undergoing a specific emotion. This does not only apply to negative emotions. However, in this talk, I would like to focus on that part of the spectrum. What happens in our brains when empathy is activated is the impact of a stimulus in the anterior insular cortex, a region of our brains that is responsible for, among others, our internal awareness of pain, disgust, and fatigue. This means that whenever we put ourselves in the other's shoes, we are actually subjected to the pain they are going through, even though we aren't victims of the same impulses. Repetitive activation of that negative neural network may result in the reduction of produced dopamine, as well as the deterioration of our mental well-being. In a study conducted by researchers from the University of Groningen, it was found out that it's surprisingly common for people with high empathy levels to fall victim to depression, anxiety, and other emotionally charged mental disorders. Empathy can therefore cause our quality of life to deteriorate in more than one way. While it's important to understand that empathy sometimes is the reason for us providing others with necessary help or support, it's also important to mention the other side of that coin. Look at those two pictures. I would like you to think which one of these makes you more emotional. Most of you would probably choose the second picture. That is because our brains tend to feel a better emotional connection with individuals rather than masses. The second image seems more important to us, even though it talks about millions of people less than the one on the left. Experts call this phenomenon the identifiable victim effect, and it's more prevalent in our lives than you might think. While it can surely lead us to many helpful decisions, it can also be pretty deceiving. From the perspective of our brains, there is a significant difference between, for example, sending $5 to action of UNICEF and sending $5 to support a fund of sponsoring chemotherapy for a cancer patient that is 70 years old and is called Susan, and additionally likes to draw turtles. Logically speaking, the choice should be obvious. Sending $5 to a professional action of UNICEF that could potentially save thousands, instead of sending it to an unofficial fund for an unsure procedure of just one singular child, seems like a better choice for the greater good. However, many of us make that choice every day and choose the latter option. This can be fully accredited to the way we process empathy and the identifiable victim effect. It only takes our brains a second to put ourselves in the shoes of this specific Susan that we can see and distinguish, while it's troublesome to do that with a general mass. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. The same thought process accompanies questionable policies of justifying military action, exploitative capitalist businesses, or medical workers denying care to their patient. All of those can be accredited to us experiencing and not being able to control empathy. Should we stay emotionless then and rely only on logic? Obviously not. At first, being devoid of empathy seems cold and law-like. However, this is when another incredible ability of our brains comes in, and, by all means, can create a better reality. This ability is compassion. Often mistakenly taken as a part of empathy itself, compassion can be understood as a state of deep understanding and sympathizing with others' suffering. But while empathy stimulates the negative neural paths in our cortex, compassion was proven to do the exact opposite. In a study carried out by key researchers Olga Klimecki and Tanya Singer, it was found that compassion without the negative effects provided by empathy elicits activity in the medial orbitofrontal cortex and ventral tegmental area, which are responsible for producing and utilizing dopamine. Moreover, it also stimulates the globus pallidus, which is responsible for the control of actions and adapting our movements to the state of the world. So, to put it simply, globus pallidus is what makes us want to pet our dogs instead of hitting them viciously. And while empathy works by inducing pain and harming our body, Compassion accounts for us feeling enthusiastic about providing help to others. By the ability of being able to recognize others' suffering without being emotionally scarred by it, we are able to correctly assess the amount of help they need and are immediately motivated to provide it. Quoting an article by Adam Hoffman, "When empathy hurts, compassion can heal." Obviously, our brains differ in the levels of empathy we experience on a daily basis. While some of you might feel utterly distressed with a child falling off their bike, your neighbor might only be moved by an apocalyptic catastrophe. Thankfully, studies have shown that compassion training can decrease the negative effects of empathy regardless of your basic empathy levels. Compassion training methods vary, but those showing satisfactory results include fostering benevolent and friendly attitudes towards oneself and others, that is a quote, and paired with memory exercises. A simple 30-minute long meditation session consisting of spreading one's emotions first to your loved ones and then to the entire world's population can result in a significant increase in life quality and decrease in anxiety levels. So maybe we should start appreciating both ataraxia and compassion, and we will finally be able to achieve the state of natural happiness Stoics have had their eyes on for centuries. Thank you.